I saw my wife's Facebook post at 06:30 hours Kuwait time through my buddy Jake's account. Beach day with my soulmate. The photo showed her kissing a man I'd never seen before. I'd been gone for exactly 18 hours. I shouldn't have been able to see it. 3 days before my deployment, Jessica had unfriended me on Facebook. I want to stay off social media while you're gone, she'd said, sitting on our bed, scrolling through her phone. It'll be too hard seeing other couples together, and I don't want you worrying about my posts when you should be focused on your mission. I'm going to make my profile private, maybe take a break from posting altogether. I thought it was sweet. Thoughtful even. My wife protecting both of us from the emotional difficulty of social media during deployment. Jake Martinez had been checking in on me. Same way Marines look out for each other. Bro, you need to see this. He texted me at 06:20. I'm screenshotting Jessica's Facebook. Well, something's not right. The screenshot showed everything. The post, the comments, the location tag, the timestamp. The betrayal wasn't just planned, it was calculated. She'd unfriended me specifically so I wouldn't see her new life starting the day I left. My name is Marcus. I'm 38 years old, gunnery sergeant with the United States Marines. I'd been in the Corps for 15 years, deployed 7 times across 3 different theaters. I was supposed to be in Kuwait for 6 months, training Allied forces in logistics and tactical operations. The woman in that photo was Jessica Thompson, my wife of 8 years. 5'6", blonde hair she spent $200 every 6 weeks to maintain, green eyes that used to light up when I walked through the door after deployments. The same woman who'd cried at the airport yesterday telling me she'd count the days until I came home. The same woman who'd promised to be strong, to wait for me like she always had. The same woman who'd unfriended me on social media for our own good. I stared at that photo for 30 minutes, sitting in my bunk in the temporary quarters at Camp Buring. The timestamp showed it was posted at 11:47 p.m. her time, less than 12 hours after my plane took off from San Diego. The location tag said La Jolla Beach. She wasn't even trying to hide it. The comments were already piling up. Her sister, "You deserve happiness." Her best friend, Sarah, "Finally seeing you smile again. Love this for you." Her mother had even liked the post. My chest felt like someone had driven a bayonet through it and twisted. 8 years, 8 deployments where she'd promised to wait. 8 times I'd carried her picture in my gear, looked at it when the mortars were falling in Fallujah, when the IEDs were going off in Helmand, when I was lying in a hospital bed in Landstuhl wondering if I'd ever walk right again. The photo showed her wearing the white sundress with small blue flowers, the one I'd bought her at that little boutique in Coronado for our anniversary last year. She'd worn it to the Marine Corps ball, told me it was her favorite dress because I'd picked it out for her. Now she was wearing it to kiss another man on the beach where we'd had our first date. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Jessica. I can't come to the phone right now because I'm living my best life. Leave a message." The same cheerful voice that had whispered, "I love you" in my ear 14 hours ago at the airport. I tried texting. "Saw your post. Call me." "Nothing." "Jessica, we need to talk." "Nothing." "What the fuck is going on?" "Nothing." For 2 hours, I sat in that bunk, staring at the photo, reading the comments, watching the likes pile up. 43 people liked the post of my wife kissing another man. 43 people who knew she was married to a Marine currently deployed overseas. At 0900 hours, my commanding officer called me into his office. "Thompson, I just got a message from the Red Cross. Family emergency back home. Your wife's been in some kind of accident." I looked at him, confused. "Sir, what kind of accident?" "Details are sketchy. Something about a car accident, possible head injury. The Red Cross is recommending immediate emergency leave so you can be with her during recovery." I pulled out my phone and showed him the Facebook post. "Sir, this was posted 3 hours ago. She doesn't look injured to me." Colonel Martinez studied the photo, his expression getting harder. "Jesus Christ, Thompson, I'm sorry. Sir, I need to go home, but not for the reason the Red Cross thinks." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking my wife filed a false emergency report to get me emergency leave, probably so she could have 6 months to do whatever she's planning without me around. I'm thinking she doesn't know I have internet access here." Colonel Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "Thompson, you're one of my best NCOs. You've got a spotless record, 15 years of exemplary service. If you need to go home and handle this situation, you've got my support. But understand, this kind of emergency leave comes out of your annual leave balance." "I understand, sir, but I can't stay here knowing what's happening at home." I took an oath to defend this country, but I also made promises to my wife. If she's breaking hers, I need to know. Fair enough, but Thompson, whatever you do back home, don't do anything that would bring discredit upon the Corps. Handle this like a Marine. Yes, sir, always. The flight home was 18 hours of hell. I kept refreshing Jessica's Facebook page, watching her post updates about her perfect day at the beach and her new beginning. She posted a selfie at sunset with the caption, "Sometimes life surprises you with exactly what you need." The comments kept coming. Her friends acting like she was some kind of inspirational figure for moving on and finding happiness. Moving on from what? I wasn't dead. I wasn't even missing. I was serving my country like I'd done 7 times before. By the time I landed at San Diego International, I had a plan. Not an emotional plan, not a revenge fantasy, a tactical plan. The same kind of methodical approach I'd use for any mission where the stakes were high and the intelligence was incomplete. First, reconnaissance. Confirm the target and assess the threat. Second, intelligence gathering. Understand the full scope of the operation. Third, tactical response. Neutralize the threat with minimal collateral damage. The subject line of the emergency recall message read, "Family emergency, immediate return authorization." By 1400 hours, I was on a transport back to Camp Pendleton. By 2200 hours, I was stateside. By 800 the next morning, I was parked across the street from my house in Oceanside, watching my wife of 8 years, the woman who'd sworn to love and honor me, say goodbye to a man who definitely wasn't me. The first thing they teach you in reconnaissance is patience. Don't react to first contact. Observe, gather intelligence, understand the full scope of the situation before taking action. So that's what I did. I didn't storm into the house. I didn't confront them. I sat in my truck 200 meters away with a clear line of sight, and I watched. The man was tall, athletic build, driving a BMW 3 Series that was maybe 3 years old, license plate 7K9R248. He stayed for 2 hours. When he left, Jessica walked him to his car, kissed him again, and stood in the driveway watching him drive away. She was wearing the sundress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. I followed him. Not close, not obvious. Just professional surveillance, the kind I'd done 100 times, in places where getting made meant getting dead. He drove to a strip mall fitness center called Peak Performance Gym. He parked in a spot marked staff and walked inside carrying a gym bag. Personal trainer, of course. I spent the next 4 hours conducting what we call pattern of life surveillance. I learned his name was Derek Martinez, 29 years old, from the staff photos posted outside the gym. I learned he drove the same route home every day, lived in a ground floor apartment in a complex about 6 miles from the gym. I learned he made one stop on the way home, at a coffee shop where he flirted with the barista for exactly 8 minutes. By 1600 hours, I was back at my truck parked where I could watch my house. At 1745, Derek's BMW pulled into my driveway again. I sat there until 22:30 hours, watching the lights in my house, thinking about 8 years of marriage. Thinking about Jessica crying when I deployed to Afghanistan the first time, promising she'd wait for me no matter how long it took. Thinking about the Mustang GT I'd bought her 2 years ago for her birthday, fully loaded 5.0-liter V8, candy apple red with white racing stripes. She'd begged me for that car for months. She'd driven it exactly 3 times. At 22:40 hours, Derek left. I gave him a 10-minute head start, then I followed him home. The next morning, I was waiting in the parking lot of his apartment complex when Derek came out for his morning run. I'd been there since 05:30, parked where I could see his front door. When he emerged at 06:45, wearing running shorts and a tank top that showed off the physique he probably used to attract married women, I got out of my truck. Derek Martinez? He stopped, looked me over. I was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, boots, and a plain black t-shirt that didn't hide the fact that I'd spent 15 years staying in Marine Corps shape. Yeah, do I know you? I'm Marcus Thompson, Jessica's husband. I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and something approaching panic. Jessica's what? Husband? You know, the guy who's been deployed for the last 6 months, the one she told you was dead? Deployed? Dead? What are you talking about? Jessica said. He stopped, his face going pale. Oh shit. Oh shit, man, I had no idea. She told me she was divorced. She said her ex was completely out of the picture. Interesting. What exactly did she tell you? She said she was recently divorced, that her ex-husband was... Look, man, I swear I didn't know she was married. She's been coming to the gym for 4 months. We started talking. She seemed really lonely. She said she was getting back into dating after a bad divorce. 4 months. I'd been deployed for 3 days. She's planning to sell a car, I said, watching his reaction. Did she mention that? Derek's face got even paler. Yeah, she said it was her ex-husband's car, some kind of Mustang. She said he was dead, that she finally felt ready to let go of his things. She asked if I knew anyone who might want to buy it. My Mustang. The car I'd saved for 6 months to buy her. The car she'd claimed to love but never drove. Dead husband, huh? I kept my voice level, professional. What else did she tell you about this dead husband? She said he was in some kind of accident. Military guy, I think? She said she kept the car because it reminded her of him, but now she was ready to move on with her life. Derek was talking faster now, probably realizing how badly he'd been played. Look, man, I'm really sorry. If I'd known she was lying about being divorced, about you being dead. I mean, Jesus, you're obviously not dead. No, I agreed. I'm not dead. I'm a Marine. 15 years active duty, currently on emergency leave. Derek took a step back. Marine? Shit, man. I didn't know. I swear on my mother's grave, I thought she was single. I've got clients who flirt with me all the time, but I don't mess around with married women. That's a line I don't cross. I believed him. He was scared, but not guilty scared. More like, holy shit, I got played by a sociopath scared. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to write down everything Jessica told you about her situation. Dates, times, exact conversations. Everything about the car, about me being dead, about her being divorced. You're going to sign it and date it. Why? Because when this goes to divorce court, I'm going to need evidence that she was planning to sell marital assets under false pretenses. And evidence that she was telling her boyfriend that her husband was dead while he was deployed overseas serving his country. Derek nodded quickly. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever you need. Look, I feel like shit about this. I had no idea. I know you didn't. She played you just like she played me. I handed him my phone number written on a piece of paper. Write up that statement and text me when it's ready. And Derek, this conversation stays between us until I say otherwise. Of course, and Marcus, I'm really sorry, man. Thank you for your service. I drove away wondering if Derek was actually a decent guy who got manipulated, or if I was being played again. But his reaction seemed genuine, and the information about the car confirmed what I'd suspected. Jessica wasn't just cheating, she was planning to liquidate assets while I was deployed. Time to find out what else she was planning. I drove to my buddy Tony's house. Tony Ramirez had been my squad leader in Afghanistan, retired Marine Master Sergeant, now worked as a civilian contractor at Camp Pendleton. We'd stayed close since our deployment days, the kind of friendship forged under fire that doesn't break over civilian bullshit. Marcus? Tony opened his front door, coffee mug in hand, looking confused. What the hell are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in Kuwait? Emergency leave? Family situation? Can I crash here for a few days? Of course, man. What's going on? I told him everything. The Facebook post, the surveillance, the conversation with Derek. Tony listened without interrupting, his expression getting harder with each detail. Jesus Christ, Marcus. Jessica's selling your Mustang while telling her boyfriend you're dead? That's not just cheating, that's sociopathic. It gets worse. I checked our joint bank account this morning. She's been withdrawing cash every week since I deployed. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up to about $3,200 so far. She's funding her affair with your deployment pay. Looks like it. The question is, what else is she planning? If she's telling people I'm dead, if she's liquidating assets. Tony was quiet for a moment, thinking. You said she's planning to sell the car this week? According to Derek, yeah, she asked him to find a buyer. What if we let her try? I looked at him. What do you mean? I mean, what if we let her go through with the sale attempt? But we make sure it doesn't actually happen. Catch her in the act, get it on video, create evidence of attempted fraud. How? Remember Jimmy Hernandez, Mike Sullivan, Dave Chen? They all live here now, all retired Marine Corps. What if I put out the word that a Marine's wife is trying to sell his car while he's deployed, claiming he's dead? I started to see where Tony was going with this. You think they'd be interested in preventing that sale? Brother, I think they'd consider it their patriotic duty, especially if it was happening right in their neighborhood. We spent the next 2 hours working out the details. Tony would quietly reach out to our mutual friends, explain the situation, ask for their help in documenting Jessica's attempted fraud. We wouldn't hurt anyone, wouldn't break any laws, but we'd make sure the sale didn't happen. And we'd make sure it was all recorded. What about after? Tony asked. You're going to have to confront her eventually. I've got a plan for that too, but first I want to see how far she's willing to go with this. That afternoon, Derek texted me. He'd written a 3-page statement detailing every conversation he'd had with Jessica about her dead ex-husband in the car sale. He'd signed it, dated it, and had it notarized at his bank. I also got a call from my attorney confirming what I'd suspected about our prenuptial agreement. Jessica got the house if we divorced, but only if the divorce was for irreconcilable differences. If it was for adultery, especially adultery involving fraud or attempted theft of marital assets, the prenup became null and void. I got everything. Everything. Friday morning, Jessica posted another Facebook update. Excited to start this new chapter, letting go of the past and embracing the future. New beginnings, us moving on. According to Derek, she'd found a buyer for the Mustang. Some kid from UCSD with rich parents willing to pay $35,000 cash for a car that was worth maybe $28,000. The transaction was set for 1,400 hours at a public parking lot near the beach. At 13:30, I was parked 2 blocks away, watching Jessica load paperwork into the Mustang. She was wearing a black dress and heels, probably trying to look like a grieving widow selling her dead husband's car. At 13:45, she backed out of the driveway and headed toward the meeting location. At 13:50, Tony and 5 other retired Marines positioned themselves at the exit points of the parking lot. At 13:55, the buyer arrived, a kid who looked like he was maybe 19, driving a white Tesla with college parking stickers. His parents had probably given him $35,000 to buy a car, and he thought he was getting a deal on a Mustang. At 1400, Jessica pulled into the parking lot and parked next to the Tesla. At 1401, Tony's truck blocked the main exit. Mike Sullivan's Silverado blocked the side exit. Dave Chen parked his motorcycle near the entrance. I watched from 200 meters away as Jessica got out of the Mustang and started talking to the kid. She had the title in her hand, forged obviously since the car was in both our names, and she couldn't transfer it without my signature. At 1403, Tony got out of his truck and walked over to them. I couldn't hear the conversation from where I was sitting, but I could see Jessica's body language change from confident to confused to angry. The kid looked scared. Tony was calm, professional, probably explaining that the woman was trying to sell a car that belonged to her deployed husband without his knowledge or consent. At 1405, Jessica started screaming. I could hear her from 200 meters away. She was telling Tony to mind his own business, that it was her car, her property, that she could do whatever she wanted with it. The kid was backing away, probably realizing he was about to get caught up in something that could land him in legal trouble. At 1407, Mike Sullivan got out of his Silverado and walked over to join the conversation. At 1408, Dave Chen did the same. At 1409, Jessica was surrounded by 6 retired Marines, all of them bigger than her, all of them calm and professional, all of them explaining that she couldn't sell her husband's car while he was deployed overseas. She lost it completely. It's my fucking car! He gave it to me! I can do whatever I want with it! You can't stop me! Ma'am, Tony said, his voice carrying across the parking lot, your husband is a United States Marine currently serving overseas. This vehicle is marital property. You cannot legally sell it without his knowledge and consent. He's dead. My husband is dead. This is all I have left of him. Ma'am, your husband contacted us yesterday. He's very much alive. Jessica's face went white. She looked around at the 6 men surrounding her, probably realizing for the first time that her carefully constructed lie was falling apart. That's impossible. Marcus is deployed. He's in Kuwait. He doesn't even know. She stopped talking, probably realizing she'd just admitted that her husband wasn't dead. Ma'am, Dave Chen said, we're going to have to ask you to return home. This sale cannot proceed. Jessica looked at the kid who was already getting back into his Tesla. She looked at the Marines who weren't moving. She looked at the Mustang, probably calculating whether she could just drive away. You can't do this. This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Please do, Tony said. They'll be very interested to hear about attempted fraud involving military assets. Jessica got back into the Mustang, slammed the door, and tried to drive toward the main exit. Tony's truck didn't move. She tried the side exit. Mike's Silverado didn't move either. She sat in the car for 10 minutes, probably making phone calls, probably screaming at Derek or her lawyer or whoever else was helping her with this scheme. Finally, she drove home. The Marines followed her just to make sure she actually went home and didn't try to meet the buyer somewhere else. I followed all of them, staying back, documenting everything with my phone. At 15:30, I had video evidence of Jessica attempting to sell marital property under false pretenses, claiming her husband was dead when he was actually alive and serving overseas. I had her on camera screaming at veterans, admitting that she was lying about my death and attempting to flee when confronted with evidence of fraud. It was time for the final phase of the operation. Sunday evening, Jessica posted on Facebook, "Family dinner at mom and dad's tonight. So grateful for the people who love and support me unconditionally. Family first? Blessed? Perfect." Jessica's parents, Robert and Linda Morrison, had been married for 42 years. Robert was a retired Navy Chief Petty Officer who'd done 3 tours in Vietnam. Linda was a retired nurse who'd spent 30 years working at the VA hospital. They were good people who'd raised their daughter to be better than this. They'd also supported me through every deployment, sent care packages, treated me like the son they'd never had. At 1900 hours, I rang their doorbell. Linda answered the door and her face went through the same cycle Derek's had. Confusion, recognition, shock. "Marcus, what are you doing here? Jessica said you were deployed overseas." I came back early. Family emergency." "But Jessica said, can I come in? I need to talk to all of you." Linda stepped aside, her face showing the first signs of concern. "Of course, honey. Come in. We're just finishing dinner." I walked into the dining room where Jessica was sitting with her parents, a glass of wine in her hand, looking relaxed and happy. When she saw me, the wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. "Marcus." Her voice was barely a whisper. How are you here?" "Emergency leave," I said, keeping my voice calm and professional. "Funny thing, though, I've been back for 5 days." Jessica's face went white. Her mother was looking back and forth between us, clearly sensing that something was very wrong. Her father was studying my face with the expression of a man who'd seen enough military crises to recognize one in progress. "5 days?" Jessica's voice cracked. "But why didn't you come home?" "I did come home. Tuesday morning, you were busy." I pulled out my phone and showed them the video I'd taken of Jessica kissing Derek goodbye in our driveway. "Who is that, Jessica?" I asked. The room was completely silent except for the sound of Jessica's breathing, which was getting faster and shallower. "I can explain," she said. "I'm sure you can. Just like you explained to Derek that I was dead." Linda gasped. Robert's face hardened. "What?" Linda looked at Jessica, then back at me. "What do you mean, dead?" I pulled out Derek's signed statement and handed it to Robert. "Your daughter has been having an affair for 4 months. She told her boyfriend that I was dead, killed in some kind of military accident. She was planning to sell the Mustang I bought her, claiming it belonged to her deceased husband." Robert read the statement, his face getting redder with each line. Linda was staring at Jessica, who was now crying. "Jessica," Linda's voice was cold. "Is this true?" "It's not what it looks like. Derek doesn't understand. Marcus is never here. He's always deployed. I was lonely." "Did you tell this man that your husband was dead?" Robert's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent 20 years giving orders in the Navy. Jessica couldn't meet his eyes. "I had to tell him something. He wouldn't have understood about the military lifestyle." "You told him I was dead," I said. "You told him you were a widow. You were going to sell my car for cash while I was serving overseas." I pulled out my phone again and showed them the video from Friday's parking lot confrontation. "This is your daughter trying to sell marital property under false pretenses, claiming her husband died in military service. She was stopped by 6 retired Marines who couldn't stand to see a service member's family defrauded while he was deployed." Robert finished watching the video and set my phone down on the table. When he looked at Jessica, his expression was one of complete disgust. "Get out," he said quietly. "Daddy, get out of my house right now." "But I can explain." Robert stood up. Even at 68, he still carried himself like the chief petty officer he'd been for 20 years. "You told people your husband was dead while he was serving his country overseas. You tried to steal his property. You brought shame on this family and dishonor on the military community that welcomed you with open arms." Linda was crying now, but her voice was steady. "How could you do this, Jessica? How could you do this to Marcus, to us, to yourself? You don't understand." Jessica was sobbing. "You don't know what it's like being married to someone who's never here. I was lonely. I needed someone." "Then you get a divorce like an adult," Robert said. "You don't commit fraud. You don't lie about military service. You don't dishonor a man who's risking his life for this country." I pulled out the final document, the divorce papers my attorney had prepared. "I've filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and attempted fraud. According to our prenuptial agreement, Jessica forfeits her claim to marital assets due to the nature of the infidelity. The house, the cars, the savings accounts, the retirement funds, all of it reverts to me. Jessica stared at the papers. You can't do this. I won't sign this. You don't have to sign it. California is a no-fault divorce state, but fraud charges are criminal. I have video evidence of you attempting to sell marital property under false pretenses. I have written testimony from your boyfriend detailing your lies about my death. I have bank records showing you've been withdrawing cash from our joint account to fund your affair. I stood up, straightening to my full height. You have two choices, Jessica. You can sign these papers and walk away with nothing, or you can fight it, and I'll press criminal charges. Fraud involving military assets is a federal crime. You'll do time in federal prison. The room was quiet except for Jessica's crying. Robert, Linda, I said, I want you to know that this doesn't change anything between us. You're still my family. You'll always be my family. But I can't stay married to someone who would lie about my death while I'm serving overseas. Robert stood up and shook my hand. You're a good man, Marcus. You deserve better than this. Linda hugged me, still crying. I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so ashamed of what she's done. Jessica was still sitting at the table staring at the divorce papers. I loved you, she said quietly. No, I said. You loved the idea of being married to a Marine. You loved the benefits, the housing allowance, the military discounts, the respect people show to military families. But you never loved me enough to be faithful while I was serving my country. I walked toward the door, then turned back. The Mustang will be picked up tomorrow. Consider it a small payment toward the money you stole from our joint account while I was deployed. Derek's a decent guy, by the way. He had no idea you were married. He thought he was dating a widow. You played him just like you played me. I left Jessica crying at her parents' table, signed divorce papers in front of her, and walked out of the house I'd considered my second home for 8 years. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Jessica moved back in with her parents, who were still barely speaking to her. Derek had transferred to a different gym and blocked her on all social media. The fraud charges were dropped in exchange for her agreement to the divorce terms and repayment of the stolen money. I kept the house, the cars, and my retirement accounts. More importantly, I kept my honor, my dignity, and the respect of my military family. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's just being better than the person who tried to destroy you, and making sure the truth comes out in front of the people whose opinions matter most. Jessica learned that lying about military service, even to commit fraud, has consequences. And I learned that 15 years of military training doesn't just prepare you for war. It prepares you for every battle life can throw at you. Subscribe if you agree.